my pleasure now, brothers, to introduce a very good friend of mine and a friend of yours, Rich Alley's, Deputy Chief from New York City, 854. And he called us a couple weeks ago, and so we got some good news. Rich is going to be seeking a Senate seat down in Queens. You heard all the discussion yesterday, brothers. If we need anything in this world, firefighters need friends and all. And Richie, I know, will do a fantastic job. He's a hard-working labor guy. So please welcome Rich Alley's 854.
Morning, brothers. Morning. Thanks, Mike. Very humbled by that introduction. And again, for anybody in the room that doesn't know me, my name is Richie Alley's, sometimes known as Roy McShane. That's a story for another case. Billy Rumacher and Jim McGowan, and I were already quite a few times. I have 34 years in the New York City Fire Department. I currently hold the rank of Deputy Chief. Early this month, I was re-elected to my third term on the Executive Board of Local 854, where I'm currently the Recording Secretary, as well as the Legislative Chair. And that position as Legislative Chair has allowed me to form relationships on all three levels of government, which is extremely valuable. So what's not a secret in New York City, and what's not a secret in Washington, and what's not a secret in Albany, and thanks to Mike, it's no longer a secret in Niagara Falls. Very close to announcing my candidacy for the New York State Senate in the 13th District, which is in Queens. Now, why should you support me? Because I'm from the fire service? Maybe. But hey, you know me. I'm from Queens. Jimmy's smiling because that's an inside joke on the executive board of Local 854. We are probably one of the most engaged political action locals in the IAFF. Our endorsement is highly sought after in the city. We have an extensive interview process which takes many hours. And we don't just have our legislative committee doing interviewing, the entire executive board sits in on it. And I know that many of you have done the same thing. And what we hear time and time again is, I respect you, I admire you, I understand your issues, and I will be there on the front line with you when the time comes. And all we get is their talk. Because you know what? They're not us. That's part of the problem. So, way back when, and I don't want to give the elected official up, but he was a high-ranking elected official and was looking for higher office. I'll give you his initials. It's Governor AC. Before he was governor, he was the Attorney General. We sat down with him. We knew that he was going to be the winner, or we felt that he was going to be the winner. We were going to give him a chunk of change. And we sat down and we talked some issues. And in the process, as he's trying to ingratiate himself with us, he said, hey, you guys know me. I'm from Queens. What does that make you feel like? You know, you're like, yeah, this guy gets it. He's going to be with us. How does that work for us? Not too well. So a little background on how this campaign began. The current state senator is Jose Peralta. Back in the city, every elected position is up for grabs. Mayor, controller, public advocate, entire city council, and every borough is going to have a president. The borough president position is a highly sought after position. There were about 7 people that are in the race for Queens Borough president. My legislative committee and I, we determined that Jose Peralta, not for selfish reasons, would probably be the most likely victor of that. So based on that, my president, Al Hagan, encouraged me to consider running for that position. And as a preliminary to that, was to apply to the IAFF Political Training Academy, which I did. He followed up with an endorsement letter. I was accepted, and I attended the academy back in February. I can assure you that, we've all attended IAFF educational seminars, but this Political Training Academy knocked my socks off. It is the most extraordinary training that you can get. And not just for someone that is aspiring to run for political office, but anybody that's involved in the legislative negotiations of their union. They will tailor certain things to you if you aspire to be a candidate, but for the most part, it's the day in and day out legislative work that you do. So based on that successful 10 days that I spent at the academy, I came back and I talked to my executive board, and also placed a call to a very good friend of mine, Dennis Hughes, former president of the New York State AFL-CIO. Dennis felt so strongly about this that he urged me to run and had offered to become my treasurer, which was pretty extraordinary. Once he said that, it was an offer I couldn't refuse. So I filed paperwork up in Albany to form a political campaign. And I began raising money for what I thought would be a special election. And by that I mean that if Senator Peralta was successful in his Queensborough president race, he would have to vacate his seat. And the primary is in September. That race is all about the primary. So it's a midterm, and seat is not up until 2014. So early 2014, it would have to be a special election. They have a primary, but how is the candidate picked for the primary? The party picks the candidate. How does the party pick the candidate? One, you need to have a relationship with the party chairman. That I do. A very good friend of mine, Congressman Joe Crowley, is the Democratic Party chair in Queens. And number two, you need money. Number three, you need money. And number four, you need money. Why? The party wants to know that you can stand on your own 2 feet and raise money. They don't want to have to waste the party coffers on your election when it's just a primary. So that's how that started. I have the full and unanimous support of Local 854. I have the full and unanimous support of Local 94. I have the full support of the IAFF. General President Schaeferger has assured me that he will make this race priority number one in the 2014 election. And just to back up his words, he had, and I didn't ask him to, he had a one-on-one sit-down with the party chair, Joe Crowley, to let Joe Crowley know, man to man, that that's how he felt about me, and that's how he felt about this race. As Mike told you, a couple weeks ago, I sat down with Mike and Sammy. They were very gracious with their time. They listened to what I had to say, very supportive, and also offered all sorts of advice. They have a tremendous amount of experience, and I appreciate everything that they said. Additional fundraising in the IAFF, it should be unlimited. The 3rd District has offered to throw me a fundraiser along with all of their law enforcement unions. They have a very close relationship. My entire class of 50 at the Political Training Academy email me constantly. Can't wait to get on board. I sat down with the New York State AFL-CIO President Mario Salento, who's very excited and very engaged and can't wait for me to really get started. And the same with the Central Labor Council President Vinny Alvarez and the political directors, the meetings that I attend with of the main unions that are there, including the all-powerful UFT, which is the teachers union. I've had several offers for private fundraising, which I'm holding off for the time being because I think everyone's focus really should be in 2013, so I don't want to get lost in the shuffle. And once I go out of the House of Labor, then it's off to the races, and I need to formally announce. So where am I at now? Mr. Peralta has been implicated in a recent Albany scandal. He is one of 7 elected representatives that were targeted and taped by convicted State Senator Shirley Huntley. After that, Mr. Peralta dropped out of the Queensborough president race. Now we await the next shoe to fall. So why is this race so important for all of us? Let's take a quick glimpse back at the last 2 years. Let's look at the state employee contract. 3 zeros, a small percentage increase over 2 years, and a health insurance premium increase. The net deficit. In other words, a pay cut. Tier 5, even worse, Tier 6. Now firefighters no longer have a 20-year pension, no longer have 3/4 disability. It's at 50%. No longer have the protection of the presumptive bills. 27 years of hard-fought legislative sacrifice, lost with the stroke of a pen. And who stood up in the chamber to fight for us? I'll tell you who. Nobody. Binding arbitration and the stranglehold that Cuomo has on the cowards in the Assembly and in the Senate. This needs to stop. One of us needs to be at the table because, brothers, if you are not at the table, you are usually on the menu. So I ask you to help me, help us, by raising enough money, which is the mother's milk of politics. Jimmy McGowan has PAC contribution forms forming to put me in the upper house where even as a freshman, I can work to effect change immediately and stem the tide of enmity against us and the House of Labor. If I'm known as anything, it's as a man that's passionate and is an advocate for firefighters. While in the field, my nickname was the People's Chief. And I didn't get that name by towing the department line or any party line, I can assure you. I'm a man with a passionate work ethic. I'm a man with a passion to fight for what's right for firefighters throughout our great state. I'd like to leave you with this final thought, so you know how very serious I am about this. If elected, as the law stands now, I would have to forfeit my pension while serving as state senator. Although that law does not include cops. How did that happen? Senator Diane Savino, one of our good friends in Albany, has drafted legislation which requires a fiscal note. She'll work on that next year, but there's no guarantees. And I don't care, because the lives, the pensions, the benefits of firefighters in our entire state is at stake. And I'm honored to make that sacrifice for you and for your families. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you get on board. God bless our state organization, and God bless the IAFF, the symbol of professional firefighters everywhere. Thank you, brothers.